But there's an online section in which 24 students get together once a week on Wednesday, and we have conversations. And so we decided, hey, for this summer session, the last day, we're going to make it a live Q&A for the students who met online, and most of whom have never met me, Maya here being one of them. And then I'll just answer questions.
What topic are you most passionate about in class?
That's such a good question. I don't know. I think I'm kind of passionate about everything, actually. Like whatever topic, I like to think about things. I like to think about so many different things. And so I have this kind of sense in me that whatever it is I'm talking about is worth thinking about. And then I always find some way to think about it that is built on curiosity. So I'm always, if whatever the topic might be, I'm asking questions. And the questions are the questions that I really want to answer. And so part of the reason I teach this class is because 2 times a week I get to come in here and I get to find some answers to questions that I have sort of stumbled upon for whatever reason. So if I've stumbled upon those questions, then I get passionate about coming up with answers. And I'm interested in so many different things that, I don't know, it's almost like I can't. It's like there's everything. But maybe global issues a little more than other issues.
Is there any topic that you don't like talking about, or an issue that you struggle to talk about?
No. I'm cautious about some issues, right? Whatever issues are really hot button issues in the world. So, for example, transgender issues are really, really hot right now. And when I say hot, that means that people have taken sides. And when people take sides, then I'm going to be really careful about walking in between, or not, going too far over this way or too far over this way. And so I'm cautious because I know that people have divided themselves into camps, like right and wrong, good or bad. And that's just really dangerous for me because I don't really operate in camps. I operate by walking around the perimeter of issues. And I can take, my job as an instructor is to take any side that I feel like is valuable to take in a classroom to get people to think. So that means sometimes I'm going to take a perspective that's not very popular, and I have to be really careful about that because the masses, the armies who have taken sides will attack, and I don't like that. That's gets out of the way.
Throughout all of your travels, which individual that you met affected you the most and was most influential?
Probably the person that impacted me most was in 1987, spending time in Central America, and I went to Nicaragua, and it was during the Civil War, and I walked. I was in this little town on the border between Costa Rica and Nicaragua, and I just kind of found a place to stay, a person that just rented a room to me. I was going to visit a refugee community. I had some medicines to take to a refugee community, I don't know, in Nicaragua, but I needed a place to stay, so I found a place. And there was this woman sitting on her porch, and I'm walking down the street looking for some food of some sort, and she says, "Hey, oye, gringo, ¿dónde vas?" Gringo, where are you going? And I said, man, I'm looking for some food. And so she started talking to me, and I sat down on her steps, kind of just like this, sitting there, and she was sitting in a chair here. We started talking, right? And she started telling me her story. And then I realized that the whole half of her house was destroyed. And I asked her, "Hey, what happened to your house?" And she said, "Well, during the war, tanks came through town, and somebody blew her house apart, right?" So we were talking about what was happening in our country at that time. The United States was supporting what really was an illegal civil war in Nicaragua. And so the more she told me, and the more I was really just hearing her personal story, and she said, the more I just kind of got really pulled in. And she was really quite old. And she said, hey, she knew I was a teacher. I was going to be a teacher. And she said, whatever you do when you teach students, make sure you talk about things going on in other countries. And I said, okay, I will do that. And she said, promise me that you'll do that. And I said, okay, I promise I'll do that. So that was almost 40 years ago, right? Well, it was 35 years ago, I guess. Is that it? 1980, 87. And so forever I think of her, like I made that promise to her. So I've always sustained that interest in global issues and talk about some of the things that are rarely talked about.
How might you be able to expose yourself more to the world and travel on a tight budget, say for people on lower income or for the younger generations who hold less wealth?
So one thing is, you don't have to really travel the world. I mean, one of the cool things about the United States is how multicultural we are and how many people you can meet from different backgrounds and ways of life and cultures and even social classes, right? You can go, man, if you're like from the upper middle class and you live in the burbs somewhere, I don't know, around outside of Philly or something, you can go right outside of State College here and meet some quite fascinating people that might as well be living in Japan. They're so different from you that you might as well just go to Japan because it's that different, you know? So you're from State College, right? Are you with me on that? So you got State College, and then you got, whoa, you know, like for example, the people who clean this room, you know, they're not living in downtown State College, right? And so it's just like very different cultures, very different ways of being and thinking. So the first thing is you don't have to go fly on the other side of the world, but the degree to which you do, what I did when I was young and didn't have any money, I just saved every dollar, man. I did not. Every dollar was a dollar toward somewhere I could go, and I didn't buy any. I just got used clothes. Everything I got, it was just something that I could get for free. Somehow I saved every single possible dollar that I could save. Now, obviously, I was in the U.S. I wasn't in Sri Lanka or you know, the DRC or something. But nonetheless, right? So for people who have access to some means or resources, that's how I did it.
What's one country like outside the United States that you would like recommend young people who want to learn more about different cultures to?
I would say anywhere where you can get an inexpensive ticket and find cheap housing. Like you can go to Korea, for example, and get a really sweet kind of small hotel room for $25, right? I mean, it's going to cost you a little more to get all the way to Korea, but not that much more, really. But $25, you know what I mean? That's really easy. I would say anywhere. I would say like Haiti, for example, but you can't really go to Haiti right now. Well, you can't at all. Well, most people can and obviously wouldn't, but yeah, I would say wherever you could go.
Throughout all of your travels, how are you treated as like a foreigner? Like, do you have any stories about that, and how does that compare to how like people in the United States treat people from other countries?
Yeah, so listen, people in the U.S. are known around the world for being nice. You know, we're known around the world for having a lot of guns and shooting each other and doing all sorts of things, right? But we're also known for being really friendly. And Americans will often not be like friendly on the outside, but once you sort of enter into a relationship or whatever, we're known to be like really super friendly. Okay, so that's like how we're seen by most people. Now we may talk a big talk, like you got all these people saying like, hey, put the walls up and keep the Mexicans out and that kind of shit and throw them out of the country. But those same people, if they sat down and they would have dinner with a group of undocumented Mexican immigrants, and they would most likely be very friendly because that's just kind of how Americans are. And sometimes that grates on other people. Not grates on them, but it's like they don't understand that. I have rare experiences where I've been treated with other than kindly, with something other than kindness, and all over the world. And have experiences of where people who have nothing or have very, very little offer me the last whatever it is that they have. Like they can't afford it, but because I'm a guest, I'm a stranger, I'm a guest in their country or maybe in their home or whatever.
All right, so what's your favorite place you've ever traveled to, your least favorite place you ever traveled to, and what did you learn?
I don't have a favorite, really. I really don't, I swear. Right now, my favorite place is going to Korea because it's so fascinating. I'm learning more. I'm going there more, and I'm learning more and more, and I love Korea. Is such an interesting place, and the Korean people are awesome. It's a cool culture. I don't think I have a least favorite place. I really don't. Yeah. Wish I did. What did I learn? What have I learned? I've learned that I've not had a least favorite place. I mean, I haven't been anywhere where people treat me poorly. Like there's this thing that we talk about, like the French are really arrogant and the French hate Americans and they hate foreigners. And I don't find that at all, man. And especially in Paris. I find people in Paris to be just incredibly friendly. And, so I don't know. Yeah.
Or have you had a place or moment that you like felt unsafe on like travels or in like culture?
Or in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Like when I'm around people with a ton of guns.
So out of
when I'm walking through Walmart and like the three people around me are packing guns and I'm like, damn, dude, like seriously? You know what I mean? And I'm not necessarily feeling safe because like, I guess, but I don't know. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, yeah. All right. So has there been an unsafe thing? Yeah, I've had a few examples where I've been like, whoa, shit. I shouldn't be in this situation. I put myself in some situations that I probably should not have put myself in. Yeah.
Like after those situations, do you like decide that you're not going to go back to that place, or is it kind of just like...
No, it wasn't really that. It was more just like, I'm not going to be the idiot that I was. Like I was I got a taxi ride with this taxi driver and he ripped me off. He tried to rip me off and I'm like, dude, f*** off. This was all in Spanish, right? I'm like, f*** off. I'm not giving you that money. Here, I'm going to give you what's fair and that's it. And he wanted more. And I'm like, just kept telling him to go f*** himself, right? And wait, can I say that? Niche, are we all right? All right. All right. She doesn't know. All right. Hang on. All right. I won't say it. Well, that's what I did. So anyway, the guy just said, hey, and he really was stealing, he was trying to steal from me because I was out pretty far away from where where I could get any assistance or whatever. But I just kept taunting the guy because that's just kind of how I can be like that if you come at me. And so he leaves and he comes back with his friend. And his friend now has a gun. And the guns, they call me over to the car. His friend has a gun. The gun's sitting on his lap. The gun was a really old revolver. And I looked at the gun. I'm standing outside the car. And I'm like, dude, that gun probably can't even shoot. It's so old, man. And now I'm taunting him about their stupid gun. And meanwhile, my wife is going like, fuck, dude. Really? Is this worth $10? I'm like, well, it's not about $10. It's just like, So anyway, after that, I realized, man, that's how bad things happen. Just don't be an idiot. I'm not an idiot the vast majority of the time, but sometimes I am. No, actually, I'm an idiot probably most of the time, and sometimes I'm not, but whatever the case is. Yeah.
What current event do you think that we as college students should be focused on?
Dude, the first thing is just yourself. You should really focus on yourself. Like, don't try to focus on your own growth. And focus on a very respectful and thoughtful relationship with your own families. And for some people, that means pulling away. and for other people it means coming together, but it probably for most everybody means pulling away, which is what happens at this time in life between 18 and 24 or so. And so in developing a real sense of who you are and what you are, and then so that you can come back together with the family in a way that is really on terms that are best for not only oneself, but also for the family. And I always feel like whenever college students or people this age ask me, I'm like, focus on yourself. If you've never been in therapy, go do some therapy. Talk to someone who can ask you the kinds of questions that no one's ever asked you. So you hear yourself thinking out loud. Because that's what it is, right? If you've never done that, if you've never really talked a lot, you really have to do that. Or it's good. I mean, it's much more of a Western thing. But what I find is people in the East need it as well, even though it's not seen in the same way as it's seen here. So yeah, I would say that. Don't focus on yourself. And then, kind of connect, learn about things around the world. But the problem is too many people, they focus on things outside of themselves and they never get to know who and what is in here. And if you get to a certain age and you don't know who and what is in here, you've really lost an important opportunity. And when you get to my age, not even my age, if you live your life not being really grounded with a sense of who you really are and not just following some script that you've developed now, whatever you think now is not what you ought to be thinking in 10 years about all sorts of things. Come on, man. Just random stuff. So it's that thing. I think focusing on oneself, not issues outside of us.
In a video we watched for our course material about the far-right groups in Florida,
yeah.
Do you believe it is within their right to display potentially offensive and violent imagery for many to see?
When you think about free speech, or when you think about the Second Amendment and guns and so on, it requires thoughtful people to come to the table and have thoughtful and meaningful ways to adjudicate conflicts, right? So, yeah, I can just walk around with a swastika on me, and I should be allowed to do that. It's yeah, okay. I know if we start telling you can't do that, then pretty soon you can't walk around with a pride flag. And then pretty soon you can't walk around with a Christian cross. And then pretty soon you can't walk around with an NRA sticker. And then pretty soon you can't have a Penn State logo. I don't know, And there's some reason for that. And so it's really takes some smart, thoughtful people to think through what some of these very difficult conflicts are. But it's not enough to say, it's my free speech, it's my free right. It's that's not the world. That's not going to get us where we need to go. So I can't easily answer that question, even though I generally almost always side on the side of individual liberty and so on. But it's just we're now in a place where people exercising their civil individual liberty actually creates a kind of conflict that we may not be able to get out. It may just lead us off the edge globally.
You said earlier that when you're traveling to other countries, you oftentimes don't think ahead of time on where you're going to stay that night.
I used to not do that. Yeah. Now I don't.
All right, but throughout those times, where would you end up staying, and what are some experiences that you've gone through trying to find a place to stay?
So there's always, when you're when you land somewhere and there's an airport, there's always hotels. And usually there's going to be inexpensive hotels, especially if you go to a country that's not a really if you're not flying into Zurich, for example, you're going to find a hotel or Stockholm. You'll find a hotel that you can afford. And so I always knew that I just need one night to get my bearings kind of thing. I stayed in some places that were whoa. I stayed in the Amazon, for example. I was going into the Amazon and I caught a lift. We got off the bus. I got off the bus and was kind of at this space. And this other guy was there to pick his friend up on the bus. And they said, where are you going? I'm like, well, we're trying to go to this one hotel and he's like, oh man, you're not going to get there. So now we're in the jungle, right? And he says, hey, just hop in my car. You can stay with us, right? Yeah, it's fine. You can stay the night. And then in the morning, I'll take you there. So I'm like, all right, I don't know who these people are. They're 2 Ecuadorians, you know? And I'm like, all right. So I did. And I get to his place, and he has all these snakes hanging inside these jars, like poisonous snakes that he caught in his house. And they're inside of jars, and they're dead, right? And I'm just like one after another. And I'm just like, okay. So I said, where are they from? He's like, oh, yeah, we catch them in the house. And I'm like, okay, where am I asleep? You know, in the house. I'm like, okay, all right, that's cool. And then, you know, just I stay there, right? And then I got to where I needed to go, and they didn't have any rooms. And so I had to sleep on the floor. And I just slept all night like this, you know, like, oh, man. You know, in the jungle, right? So you don't really want to be, but it was fine. It was fine. I'm here to talk about it. So I have a lot of experiences like that. They're the experiences that you can talk about later in life, and I always, when I'm in the middle of them, I always think, oh, this would be a really fun story to tell, except that that story right there, I've never told a single soul in probably 35 years. So I'm like, I went through all that and I never talked about it until right now. So thanks for asking.
Where's one place you've traveled or you haven't traveled that you want to?
China, man.
And why?
I just haven't gotten to China, and I want to go just because I feel like I got to go to China, man. I just have to go. Yeah, so that just jumps out at me. Yeah, there are a lot of places I haven't traveled. I've only been to maybe 50 countries or so. I mean, many of them many times, you know, like 5, 6, 10 times, you know. But yeah, China is a place. Jumps right out at me. I feel like you can't understand the world. First off, you don't understand things about like global culture if you're not following what's happening in Korea. That's one key one. But you don't understand the 21st century if you don't really understand China. And I understand. I study China a lot, but I feel like I got to be there.
To what extent would you say like an individual is shaped by the society?
Dude, 100%. There's almost nothing you do that isn't shaped by the world around you. You know, I mean, it could be really silly things like tattoos. You know, 30 years ago, none of you would have tattoos. You would never have a tattoo. And now, most of you, by the time you leave Penn State, will have at least one tattoo. 30 years ago, none of you, maybe one of you might have a tattoo by the time you were 30. But you just went. So something like that. You know, just like, yeah, we're in a time. So I think like, oh, I'm going to get a tattoo. Like it's my idea. It's not your idea. Nothing's your idea. White sneakers right now are like the big thing, you know, like the white sneakers aren't your idea. You know what I mean? This is the world kind of bringing that out, which is kind of cool. We're all grounded into the world as it is. The way we wear hair, right? Everything. So 100%, man. Which makes it really hard for somebody like me to do anything, because I'm always asking the questions like, okay, I know I'm following, but how much am I following? Like, how much do I ever have a free thought? Could I do something that's actually comes from within?
When you're like traveling, do you have to learn like a new language before going there?
No. I mean, I speak Spanish, so when I'm in Spanish-speaking countries, I speak Spanish. But no, there's always someone. The thing about English that's really cool, and even if you don't speak English, there's always somebody who you can communicate with. I've been in situations where I have not been able to communicate with anybody, but we figure it out. I've gone into restaurants in countries where there's nothing, man. And I'm like, I'll take that. And then I'll look at the person, and I remember one time I said, okay, well, I just pointed to something, and this guy who was going to bring the food, he went, and I said, okay, hang on, no. And then I picked something else, and I went like that, and he went, okay. And I don't remember what it was, but but those are the fun things in life. Yeah, you can get by with, in English, the beauty of English is that you can get by a fair amount.